Welcome to this session, Drug Shortages and Your Home Parenteral Nutrition. The speakers for this session are myself, Beverly Holcombe, and Penny Allen. I'm a nutrition support pharmacist and clinical practice specialist with ASPN, the American Society for Parenteral and Enteral Nutrition. Penny will tell you a little bit about herself during her portion of this session. I have nothing to disclose relevant to this presentation. The objectives for this session are: review current state of parenteral nutrition component shortages, which I will address. Penny will discuss the FDA Unapproved Drug Initiative and the list of questions you should consider and ask your home parenteral nutrition provider as they relate to changes in your parenteral nutrition formula. To me, managing parenteral nutrition during times of shortages is like the old Mother Hubbard nursery rhyme. When you go to the cupboard, it's bare. So why is our cupboard bare? There are many reasons for drug shortages, including manufacturing or quality issues, lack of the active ingredient or lack of the raw ingredients that are necessary to make the active ingredient. Drugs may be discontinued. Manufacturers may recall drugs if they identify a quality issue. Natural disasters such as Hurricane Maria can certainly result in a drug shortage. Changes in regulations or laws. An increase in the demand for a drug may cause a shortage, such as we've seen with COVID-19. Sometimes there's a shortage of one drug and an alternative drug is used. And in turn, the increased use of that alternative drug leads to a shortage of that medication. There may be loss of manufacturing sites, and sometimes businesses make the decision to get out of the market because manufacturing the particular drug is no longer affordable or not profitable. Sterile injectables, which include parenteral nutrition components, are particularly at risk to be in short supply, more so than oral tablets or liquid medications. Sterile injectables are produced by a small number of manufacturers, and those manufacturers have a limited capacity to produce, especially for older products like the electrolytes used in your parenteral nutrition. Furthermore, the production of sterile injectables is a long, complex, and complicated process. Any manufacturing problems or quality issues will likely result in a shortage. The University of Utah Drug Information Service is a reputable organization that monitors drug shortages. This graph, courtesy of Dr. Aaron Fox at that institution, shows the number of active drug shortages since the beginning of 2014. The number of active shortages decreased from 2014 to 2015 and plateaued, but increased again in 2017. At the end of June 2020, there were 263 active drug shortages in the United States. 55% of those shortages are sterile injectables. This slide lists the parenteral nutrition components and products that have been in short supply at least once during the last decade. Shortages have occurred, resolved, and then in short supply once again. Once a shortage of a medication occurs, it is highly likely it will happen again. That has indeed been true for parenteral nutrition. Parenteral nutrition therapy is particularly challenging for both clinicians and consumers because it is a complex medication and may contain 20 or more of these components. It is not uncommon to have multiple components in short supply at the same time. When there is a shortage of a PN component, your home provider can take a variety of actions depending on the product, the amount of the component that is available in the supply chain, and the expected duration of the shortage. When there is more than one manufacturer, as with amino acids and lipids, changing to another manufacturer is an option. For shortages of electrolytes and some trace elements, it is possible to change to a different salt. For example, change from sodium chloride to sodium acetate. Some components can have the daily dose reduced or the frequency of dosing changed. This is a strategy used during multiple vitamin shortages. the daily dose is cut in half, or the full dose is administered 3 times a week instead of daily. During shortages of multi-component products like trace elements, it is reasonable to switch to giving the individual parts. For the trace element example, this would be to administer the individual entities of zinc, copper, and selenium. For consumers that do not have intestinal failure and can absorb some nutrients, changing to an oral product is an option. A good example of this is multivitamins. If this is done, you must be compliant with taking the oral product, no skipping doses. If you do so, you may develop a deficiency. Lastly, the component may be removed from the PN. This is not desirable or optimal, and depending on the component, may put you at risk of a deficiency. This slide lists the current national shortages of parenteral nutrition components according to the 2 recognized, credible drug shortage resources in the United States. The list on the left is from the University of Utah Drug Information Service and published by the American Society of Health System Pharmacists. The list on the right is from the FDA Drug Shortages Program. You'll notice the list on the left has more parenteral nutrition components in short supply than the list I obtained from the FDA Drug Shortages site. Why are these lists different? The significant differences are how each group defines a drug shortage and how a drug shortage is determined. For the University of Utah, a shortage is any issue that changes how a pharmacy prepares or dispenses a drug, or when the prescriber must select an alternative therapy. For the FDA, a shortage is when the demand for the drug in the United States exceeds the supply. In other words, all combined manufacturers of that drug cannot meet the demand. The FDA has multiple approaches to preventing and mitigating drug shortages. They work with manufacturers to identify the underlying causes of drug shortages and ways to enhance product availability. They want to maintain drug availability while minimizing patient risk, so they work with manufacturers on quality issues and often request other manufacturers to increase production. There are a few things the FDA cannot require a manufacturer to do, and these include making a drug, increasing production of a drug, or changing the distribution of a drug in the supply chain. During critical shortages, the FDA may allow a temporary importation of a drug from an unapproved foreign source. And lastly, the FDA can expedite review of manufacturers' proposals for new drugs. During the last decade, there have been 2 key legislative efforts to address drug shortages. They are listed here along with the highlights of each law. In 2012, the Food and Drug Administration Safety Innovation Act, also known as FDASIA, became law. It gives the FDA more authority to combat drug shortages. A key part of this is that manufacturers have to keep the FDA better informed about shortages or potential shortages. This has done a lot to help prevent shortages and allow the FDA to work with manufacturers to resolve shortages. FDASIA has been an important step in preventing drug shortages, but gaps still exist. The Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security, or CARES Act, that went into law earlier this year includes provisions to expand the FDA's authority to combat drug shortages. Manufacturers are now required to provide the FDA with more detailed information about shortages and to develop plans to prevent shortages, including identifying factors that could impact production of both finished products and the active pharmaceutical ingredient. Additionally, the FDA will expedite review of applications for drugs in short supply. Yes, shortages of parenteral nutrition components do resolve. Yes, the cupboard will fill up. How do you know that a shortage is over? The first way is that your home care provider or your pharmacy can get enough of the drug or parenteral nutrition component through their normal distribution processes, and they can purchase enough to give you the full daily dose in your PN. The second is that the FDA and/or the University of Utah declare the shortage resolved. How should your PN be adjusted when the shortage is over? Any rationing or conservation measures that were implemented by your home care provider during the shortage should be stopped. You should get your full daily dose of the component. Often when a shortage is resolved, the price of the PN component has increased in price. Your home PN provider should not continue to give you a partial dose as a cost savings measure. Just because you do not have a deficiency of a component, especially vitamins or trace elements, doesn't mean it will not happen in the future if you remain on partial dosing. When a shortage is over, it is critical that your physician, home care provider, and you are made aware of the shortage resolution and your PN is adjusted. I'd like to summarize the status of parenteral nutrition component shortages and share with you a few takeaway messages. We've been dealing with shortages of parenteral nutrition components for over a decade, and they continue to occur. Currently, only a few products are in short supply, and the most critical seems to be concentrated sodium chloride. Dealing with drug shortages and shortages of parenteral nutrition components in the healthcare environment has become the new norm. Lastly, persistent shortages of parenteral nutrition components has led to a tendency to continue to provide less than adequate dosing even when a shortage resolves. This can lead to nutrient deficiencies and impair growth and development. This is a practice that should be discouraged. I've listed in this slide the references and resources I used to prepare this presentation.
The only real disclosure I have is that I work for a national home infusion pharmacy company, and I also serve as chairperson for the Aspen Public Policy Committee. So what is the UDI? The Unapproved Drug Initiative program was initiated by the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, back in June 2006. Their goal was to look at all of the drugs that have been on the market for decades that had not gone through the FDA approval process. Many of these are generics. Many of these are very, very common drugs that have been around for a long time. And also, as we related to PN, many of the generic electrolytes and additives that we use for PN are included on that list. The Food and Drug Administration basically has stated that those drugs do need to go through the FDA approval process. And then at the end of the day, it's been incredibly controversial when this happens because the result has been tremendous increases in drug prices. This caused a flurry of controversy, dissent within the healthcare setting, and many physicians feel that, and many healthcare providers feel that there isn't really much benefit to the public at the end of the day. Nothing has changed regarding many of these drugs other than the price or maybe the name of the drug. So that cost burden is falling primarily on patients or the insurance companies. And one of the main examples that took a lot of press in the beginning was a drug used for gout called colchicine. The price of the pill, and there were some articles written that said it went from 10 cents to $5. So lots and lots of press regarding this. And this is what we're seeing today as we relate it to PN. As I mentioned before, many generic ingredients that we utilize in PN were on the 2006 FDA Unapproved Drug Initiative list. In the last year or two, a number of these items are now being re-released as branded drugs at considerably higher prices than they used to be. So for example, L-Cysteine, which is used in neonatal and pediatric PN in the hospital setting, selenium, zinc sulfate, multi-trace element combination products, dehydrated alcohol, which is used for ethanol locks, and potassium phosphates. L-Cysteine, now called Elcys, was launched in May 2019 by a company called Exela Pharma Sciences. This is a product that's primarily used in the NICU in a hospital when compounding neonatal or very young pediatric patient PN formulations. It comes in 10 ml vials containing 500 milligrams of cysteine hydrochloride, and there are 10 vials per carton. the cost went up to $725 per carton, which was considerably higher than the previous cost. This product still has only 24-hour stability, so it's not usually utilized in the home care setting. American Regent also recently launched a new zinc sulfate product, zinc sulfate injection, USP. This was launched earlier this year in January. At this point in time, no other zinc formulations are being manufactured. In the home infusion and hospital world, we used to have a choice of 2 or 3 at least generic zinc types of formulations that we could add to parenteral nutrition prescriptions. Now there's one. Initially, when this product was launched, there was also no stability data, so that made it very difficult to add zinc in the PN bag for a home patient where we're compounding 7 or 8 bags at a time, sending a weekly supply. Now we have stability data as part of the same work that American Regent did with selenium. They also included zinc, so now we have beyond use dating that allows the home infusion arena to put the zinc in the bag for the patient. There were some minor changes to the formulation as well. They came out with a different strength. So this is something that hospitals and home infusion companies need to pay very close attention to in the compounding process. Now there is a 1 milligram per ml, 5 milligram per ml, and 3 milligram per ml. As a consumer, this really doesn't mean anything one way or the other. For all intents and purposes, as long as you are getting the dose of zinc that you are prescribed for and your pharmacy is compounding it safely, then everything is a-okay. The cost for a 5 milligram per ml strength did go up, but it wasn't an exponentially ridiculous price increase. So for now, it's still over $1,000 a flat for a flat of 25 vials, making that out to be about $45 a vial or about $4.50 a dose. And when we talk about how does this impact me at the end of the day, depending on your insurance coverage, depending on your home infusion provider and what the contracted rate is, if every single ingredient in PN over time continues to escalate in price and the payers are not willing to negotiate based on that, that's where the challenge comes into play. So know that many organizations are working on this and trying to work with the insurance community to get them to understand that things have changed over the years and that they should be working with us. Here's another product that's not necessarily a PN ingredient, but it's used in conjunction with PN therapy at home very often. Dehydrated alcohol for ethanol locks, or Ablysinol. This product was launched in 2018 by BPI Labs, and I think it pretty much went unnoticed for a little while because we still had access to generic dehydrated alcohol, which years ago was very, very inexpensive. What ended up happening is the Food and Drug Administration came in and dictated to the manufacturers of the generic products that they had to go through the FDA approval process or they would no longer be able to manufacture the product. And the rest of them opted out. So now we have one product, this one and one alone, to be utilized for preparation of ethanol locks. There's really no substitute for an ethanol lock, an equal substitute. So if you are a patient that's had 1 or 2 or 3 line infections and your physician has prescribed an ethanol lock for you in the past, the benefit was this was this worked for many people to prevent future line infections. It used to be inexpensive. There was no risk of any complications in terms of resistance or anything like that, like you might see with an antibiotic lock. So these, have gained great favor over the years. The challenge right now is the price of dehydrated alcohol is now going for about $800 for a 5 ml vial. Think about what 5 mLs is. It's not very much at all. Or about $8,000 for a flat. When this product first launched, it was almost $10,000 a flat. So it was crazy. And previous generic versions went for about $1,000 flat. So more than a 10 times price increase. if you extrapolate that out in terms of in the pharmacy, what do we use to make an ethanol lock? It's coming out, a dose of an ethanol lock is about depending on if it's a child, an adult, what dose you were prescribed, it's going to be over $100 a day just for that one day of an ethanol lock. Our challenge right now is many insurance companies don't even pay for the dehydrated alcohol to make an ethanol lock in the first place. So again, it's causing problems in the industry for providers who really want to do the right thing and want to continue to provide the ethanol locks. But this extra crazy price increase is making it very challenging. So again, please know that collectively, groups like the Oley Foundation, Aspen, the National Home Infusion Association are working together to try to get this type of thing to change, and going to the government if need be. But this is one of our most current issues that we're dealing with in the marketplace. There's actually a new product that has not been launched in the market as of yet, a new multi-trace element combination solution called Tralement. This has been FDA approved. We're expecting the launch to be sometime in the fall, September or October of 2020, and this will replace the adult MTE products that were formerly on the market, meaning MTE4, MTE5, concentrate, and non-concentrate. So those versions, once they run out in supply, we will not be able to purchase them once the new product comes out on the market. Pediatric and neonatal formulations will still be available, although one of the differences with Tralement, this is a brand new reformulated new doses of all the trace elements, and this will be a product that can be used in children if they weigh more than 10 kilograms or 22 pounds. They will be able to use this same version. As I said, the doses of each trace element will be slightly different. There will be no chromium in this product, so it's not going to have a number after it like 4 or 5. 4 usually means there's no selenium. 5 means there's 5 trace elements. This will technically be a 4 product, but there will be much less manganese than there was in the previous MTE product, and no chromium whatsoever, which is completely safe. The price at this time is not known since the product has not been launched yet. And thankfully, there is stability data for us to use this product in home parenteral nutrition, meaning your home infusion provider can put this in the bag for you, requiring you to do one less thing. So this brings us to, what kinds of questions should I be asking my HPN provider? First, are there any drug shortages going on right now that are affecting my PN prescription? If so, what are they? Has anything been deleted in my PN prescription? What do I need to be aware of? Are there any signs and symptoms of deficiency that I need to keep track of? Or am I receiving a reduced dose of something because of a shortage? And if so, is that component still in short supply? When do you expect to have supply? When can I expect my prescription to go back to the way it was before? Is reimbursement affecting your ability to provide me with the nutrients and related products that I need? Is there anything I can do to help? Should you or I be contacting my insurance company to ask if they would consider paying for something like ethanol locks if they currently are not? If I can absorb some degree of nutrition, should I be taking any oral or liquid supplements if something is currently not available? And would you provide that for me if you're not able to provide that form in the intravenous formulation? Are there any newer formulations out there of products that would be stable in my home parenteral nutrition? Will my child still require separate selenium when the new product Tralement is available? Did you let my doctor know you are making changes or substitutions to my HPN prescription? These are all very valid questions, and you as a consumer and or caregiver have the right to be fully informed of what's going on with your prescription. Join us for a breakout session where we'll go into more detail regarding the information we just presented, and/or we'll have an open session where you can feel free to ask any and all of the questions that you may have. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We'll see you later on.